Chris, you were so quiet today.
I know, it's been a long week. Oh, how about you?
It's good. So today is my birthday, and I spent the beginning of my birthday seeing a new psychiatrist. So I got to spend my 30th birthday discussing all the problems I've had the last 30 years. So
Oh my gosh, Jason! Happy birthday!
thank you.
Yeah, happy
Didn't
birthday,
know I
man.
didn't know that.
Chris's was a few days ago.
Yeah, the 25th.
Awesome. Well, happy birthday to both of you.
We are
Turned 30.
quite similar in age.
Yeah, I didn't really realize that until this year.
Oh, so you both
Funny.
turned 30 just recently?
Yeah, we're
Okay.
birthday bros.
Nice.
That's
But
cool.
yeah, no, things are good. Been I worked Monday, which is Memorial Day holiday. Me and the Canadians and my coworker in Ireland, so I can take off tomorrow to have a 3-day weekend. So I am looking forward to finishing out today.
Nice.
Cool.
So there is a third voice with us today. Josh, do you mind just saying hello and giving a kind of quick introduction?
Yeah, sure. Hey, everyone. My name's Josh Wood. I'm one of the co-founders of Honeybadger IO, which is a Ruby and Rails exception tracking service and a web app monitoring service. So we do a few things, but exception tracking is probably the biggest. And yeah, I'm happy to be here today.
Well, thanks for joining us. So I think we met it was MicroConf, actually. It wasn't even RubyConf.
Was it MicroConf that we met for the first time? I'm trying to remember. I know we met at a RubyConf, but I don't know if that was the first time or not. It might have been at MicroConf.
I was at MicroConf, and it was that it was the first year they did starters. The year I went, and they had that crossover dinner between growth and starter.
Yeah.
Dinner, that reception, and I was like, "You look really familiar," because I knew literally no one. So I was like, "I'm gonna have to just get out of my shell and find a way to talk to people." And here we are.
Yeah. And I was one of the ones. I think we knew each other kind of from online. Was it from when? Was that you were already doing the conference at that point? I think.
Yeah, that's right. Y'all, Honeybadger sponsored the first year, and you're right.
I think that was kind of how we knew of each other, and then so I remember meeting you at MicroConf, and it was really I was really excited because we had I think we knew each other from online a little bit.
And you guys are doing the sponsorship thing again this year, and I am.
Yeah, we are. It's excited. I think I'm not going to be able to make it this year again. I'm really sad about that too. But I think my partner Ben Curtis is gonna be going out there, and I know he's really stoked about it.
That's awesome. What is it going to take to get you to Nashville?
Well, I think RubyConf's in Nashville shortly after. Is that right?
Oh yeah, that's right.
I think I will. I'm kind of embarrassed to say, but I will be at RubyConf. So
you're saying it takes RubyConf to get you to Nashville?
Yeah, I would. So I have 2 little kids right now, and I know you do as well. So I don't think I can swing 2 trips to Nashville in the same month.
No, that's totally understandable.
Yeah.
So I'm really excited. Ben will join us. So just kind of start throwing some questions out there. What is kind of your background in programming? How'd you get started?
I got started. I guess I've been doing programming. Well, yeah, I've been programming. It was kind of a hobby for me in my teens. So I want to say, or even maybe preteen, maybe 11, 12 even. I think was when I kind of got started with just basic web development, learning some HTML and CSS and stuff. And from there, I started kind of playing with back then it was CGI scripts and stuff. I started learning Perl to do some very basic web stuff, add a guest book to your homepage sort of thing. And so it was kind of a hobby. It started out as a hobby, and it was just something I really, really liked doing, and never really stopped.
Cool. After you have started learning programming, before you transition into Honeybadger, what does kind of that window look like? Or maybe some of your like first jobs or
Yeah, so I'm trying to think. I freelanced before Honeybadger. So basically, most of my career I've been freelance. I've held a few like odd jobs and things like that, but for most of it, I've been doing like freelance web development projects. Um, in the early days, it was a lot of basic like just web design type stuff. Like building websites for small businesses and that sort of thing. Nothing very exciting. I ended up getting into doing some PHP development, and I guess that started out getting into working with like content management systems, most of which were built with PHP at the time. And so things like Joomla and WordPress and Drupal and all those sorts of things. So I got into working with those, and I think started doing a little more like actual like PHP programming myself, building plugins and doing that sort of stuff, which kind of like transitioned eventually into like building actual like full scale web applications.
CMSs are like they were my gateway into like server side.
Yeah. I think like a lot of us got into it kind of that way. It's like a gateway drug.
Yeah, it's like a lot of I was like doing all this like HTML and CSS and like rocking through, and then I was like, I can't do anything else. Like I want to like make meaningful user experiences, which I couldn't really do because I didn't know how to work with data. So
yeah,
that's cool. So you also have a podcast, Founder Quest, and it is you and your co-founders of Honeybadger.
We do.
And so that's the thing I've been listening to. I think Chris has also listened to as well.
Cool. Yeah, it's been really good. I really enjoy it.
Nice. Glad you guys are liking it. Yeah, we've been having a lot of fun recording that. Like, it's our first podcast, so I haven't. I've been on a couple podcasts before, but I'm definitely not like used to doing the podcast circuit or anything. So like starting our own podcast was I wasn't quite sure how it was going to go, but I think like we all agree like it's kind of become the highlight of our week. So we really look forward to recording.
So on the show, you have talked about, I think you talked about kind of how you started Honeybadger. I think like even like how you met. Would you mind kind of retelling a bit of that story?
Sure. Yeah. So I guess we're kind of like primed for that based on where we were in my story. Like, so I'm doing like, I moved from building basic like CMS type websites to I'm becoming interested in building more like rich dynamic web applications. And I took a brief tour through something called Cake PHP, which at the time it was like it's basically like Rails. It was like Rails for PHP at the time, and Rails was always something that I wanted to I really wanted to do, but I just didn't have I really just didn't have the time. Well, I guess just the opportunity to do it with my PHP clients. So I finally was able to break into Rails because I got a random client basically dropped in my lap that was a Rails project. And basically like I was like, well, I really want to learn this, and I haven't really had any other opportunities. So I'm just going to like say yes, like I can do this project, and then I'm going to just like, basically like buy a book and just learn as I go. And that's how I got into Rails. And I think that was like around 2009. And so that actually went pretty well. Like I caught on to it pretty fast. And I really loved it. And so I wanted to do more. I wanted to do more Rails work. And so at the time, my current business partner, Ben Curtis, was doing a project called Rails Kits, which was a basically like prepackaged template Rails apps. and one of the kits that he built was called the software as a service kit. So it was basically like a software as a service starter kit that gave you like subscription billing and a bunch of the other things that you would need to start a SaaS app. And so like I was really like I knew of him, and I had been following his work, and he had ended up posting a job advertisement asking for contract help on his blog, and I kind of just like cold emailed him basically and said like, hey, I'd like to do more Rails work, and that's how I met the person that would eventually go on to become my partner to start Honeybadger, along with Star, our other third partner.
That's awesome. It's funny how like reaching out to somebody at random can end up turning into something, like that, co-founders or longtime friends or whatever.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy, and I love the internet for that reason. Like, you can just like meet totally random, strangers on the internet and eventually like start businesses with them. I hadn't actually met my our third co-founder Star. I hadn't actually met him in person by the time we actually started a business together. So we actually we had worked together for several years, but we had never actually, it was all remote. So looking back on that just seems kind of like, it seems kind of crazy to me to like go start like, sign a contract with someone and run a business for like 10 years or 7 years without having met them yet. But yeah, it didn't seem weird at the time at all, really.
Yeah. How long were you guys working together before that?
So when I started working for Ben, I think we worked together for about I think it was a couple years, and Star was also working subcontracting for Ben at the time, which is how I met Star. So the three of us kind of ended up like working on and off together over the next I think like 2 or 3 year period, and just like even I think like Ben and Star actually ended up getting going and getting jobs at the same company towards the end of that period. But we never really like lost touch. Like we had a campfire chat room that we would all hang out in. And even when they had like stopped contracting and they were like employed, like we still like hung out in there during the day and like, traded like Rails tips and stuff like that and whatever. So yeah, it kind of just like it just never really ended. And then yeah, we ended up for various reasons wanting to start our own error tracking application, which we can talk about if you want. But yeah, that's kind of how it went.
That's funny. Like you guys had maybe never met, but you'd spent years kind of hanging out and being friends online. So
yeah,
and working together, so exactly how becoming co-founders with them is going to be. So it makes it a lot easier in the long run, I feel like.
Yeah, I think like we've gotten to we've kind of noticed that like the way we even run Honeybadger, like nothing, it's all pretty much transitioned fluidly from that freelance like remote relationship that we had. So yeah, like for instance, like we don't really even like, we're not big on like pair programming or like we'll collaborate, but we're not like, we're very much like we enjoy our silos, which is kind of I think like counter to what a lot of what you hear these days. But it's just like we're used to that. We were 3 freelancers that just kind of hung out together online, and now we're like basically we run this business, but we still like to work the way we work. So it's kind of just flowed from there.
Yeah, I would actually be curious to hear a little more about the siloed, how that works on building a product.
Yeah. So like, do you have any like anything in particular that you're curious about, or?
Yeah. So like, do you each like kind of have like a portion of like the product you're responsible for, or?
Yeah. So we did in the beginning, we kind of realized that that this was a large enough product, obviously, to have multiple people working on it at the same time. And at least we were able to launch it a lot quicker than we would if it was just, one of us doing it. And in the beginning, we kind of like self-selected into roles when we were building Honeybadger in the beginning. So Ben is like he's pretty strong on like infrastructure and DevOps and all that sort of thing. So so he took over, like he was in charge of like getting the server spun up and deploying the app and all that. Star was doing a lot of a lot of front end work at the time. So he ended up building our front end, and I ended up doing a lot of like general Rails and then building our open source integrations for like plugging into different languages and frameworks.
That's cool. Yeah, I struggle with that. I like working with other people. Like I like pair programming. I feel like I'm like personally most effective when I'm just like headphones in, music on, going it.
Yeah, it's I don't know. It like I think like I'm a lot more comfortable with that, with the headphones and quiet and focus. I think like you want to know like when is the right time to like reach out and say, hey, we should jump on a call. Or we should really like tackle this together. I think, and then pair programming has been like really effective for us in certain specific cases where it's like a problem that just like requires face to face communication. But yeah, I mean, like we've found the one on one or the solo thing to work pretty well for us in general.
That's great. So, what's kind of day-to-day life like, because it's still only you three, right?
We're actually 5 now.
Oh, wow.
We recently hired 2 people. I think it's still within the last year. Time is flying, so yeah, I think it is. But yeah, we hired Ben Finley, who is a marketing. He's our marketing manager, and then we recently hired a developer, Kevin, and so he's like our first actual developer, like full-time developer hire besides the 3 of us, because all 3 of us are developers. So
what was the state of the world like back when you guys started for error tracking? And I mean, when did Honeybadger start? You said you got started in like Rails back in 2009, which would have been what, like Rails 2.3 or something?
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah.
Rails 2 to 2.3. And then we started Honeybadger in 2012. Okay. So I want to say that was like Rails 3 days. I feel like we were on Rails 3 3 or 3.1. I don't know.
3.1,
something around there was like the first Honeybadger version.
So was there other error tracking stuff? Because see, I think I started Rails in like 2010, and I was still in college, and so I was like building it's funny you mentioned Cake PHP. I haven't thought of that in years. And my roommate in college and I were both in a CS degree, and our senior project, I was building mine in Rails. He wanted to do his in Rails, but his other team members didn't know it and they weren't really willing to learn it. So they ended up going with Cake PHP, and he was like every day kind of like complaining to me about like, oh, I wish I was using Rails. It was really funny.
That's cool.
These were also so early in our like careers too, that like we didn't even think about like, oh, running stuff in production. And like we would just be building. I think this is common. Like when you're learning, you don't build stuff and maintain it. You just like build new things all the time. And so like it never crossed our minds that we would want software like Honeybadger to keep track of production errors and things like that. So I'm curious, like, what the state of the world was like back then and what inspired you guys to start.
Yeah, so for error tracking specifically, there were a few options around. I think the main one, at least the main one that I knew of and used, was Airbrake. Airbrake they're still around. At the time they were actually originally named Hoptoad, which I Incidentally, I loved that name, and I liked it a lot better than Airbrake. But they had to, I think they ended up having to like change it for some like trademark infringement something. It was kind of, yeah, I forget at the time. But anyway, Thoughtbot, they're like a big, fairly well known today Rails and well web application consultancy. Thoughtbot had started Airbrake, and it was like at the time when it first came out and started getting like really popular. I remember like I had just started getting to the having clients where I'm like deploying Rails apps, and I'd never heard of like error tracking or kind of like different ways to monitor for exceptions happening in production beyond just like dealing with watching logs, or more often than not it would be like a client or a user encounters an issue and tells you about it, and then you have to go back and look through logs and try to figure out like what actually happened and reconstruct it, and hopefully you have the data to do that. And so when Airbrake came out, it was a really big deal because basically, it like let you put in something that like proactively monitors for exceptions and instantly notifies you when they happen. And the great thing about that is that like, instead of your clients finding out that, and there's an error, you introduced a bug in the application and they're telling you about it, you can like actually like know about it before they even see, before they encounter it and fix it. Or have it fixed and tell them that you fixed it before they can even tell you that it happened. So that was like the big thing for me that got me really excited about it. And so like we used Airbrake for a long time in our own applications and with our clients and things. But the reason that led us to start Honeybadger was that Airbrake had been sold. I think it was around 2011 or 2012. Thoughtbot sold them to a different company, and that company they did not really care about running Airbrake as well as Thoughtbot did, apparently, because like the service started to go really downhill. We started to have issues where like we wouldn't actually like have error notifications, like there would be delays or there would just be data that was missing. And so finally, like we got like really fed up with it and decided like, hey, let's just like, we could build this. And we like would really like to build something. And so like, we just decided to give it a try and do it.
I'm like curious about like, you guys launched this thing, like you three were developers. Like, did you have anybody that was interested or like good at doing the sales and marketing aspect of things? Or like, was it also just a good time to launch in Rails history where there was a lot of excitement and stuff? And did that make it, easier or harder to launch something like this?
I think there was a little bit of both. We, as freelancers, we knew how to go out and like sell. We knew how to sell a little bit, enough to go and convince clients to work, to hire us basically. We didn't know a whole lot about marketing. Ben knew some, because he of all of us, I think he was the one that like had a few successes under his belt. He had Rails kits where he had learned how to market a product a little bit, and then he also had a SaaS app that he had started called Catch the Best, which was like a tool for like hiring HR people. So I guess, yeah, Ben had a little marketing experience and product experience, and then but yeah, we were all fairly fresh, I would say. And for me, like it was the first product that I'd ever done, so at least ever done successfully. So
were you like, with all your years of consulting, were you at a point where you wanted to get out of that? And like this seemed like a good way to go, because I did consulting for quite a few years before I started working on Go Rails, and I was like was itching to start working on a product and stop like selling my time. I'm curious what your experience was.
Yeah, it was kind of the same deal. I think I remember I just I had recently read the 4 Hour Work Week, and I was like really I really wanted to create a recurring revenue stream versus, like you said, selling your time basically, which obviously like limits you to the amount of time that you have. And even though I was pretty successful especially towards the end with my consulting business, like booked full time and charging really really good rates and all that. It was really stressful because, I mean, if the pinnacle of success is basically like to be booking yourself full time, but then you're basically like glued to your desk and at the mercy of your clients basically. So
Right.
we really wanted something where we could be like the real boss, like, you're kind of your own boss when you're a freelancer, and that you can like self-direct and that sort of thing. But, your clients are still really your boss when it comes down to it. So yeah, we kind of wanted to find a way to get out of that, break that cycle.
So I have a bit more of a personal question. I'm working towards building a product, and I've noticed recently that I've put a lot of stock into that I'm going to be unhappy until I get there, somewhat not fulfilled, which is dangerous and I don't think is a good way to live. But I do want to ask, do you find fulfillment in having a product?
That's a good question. I think, well, I guess I'd say, I don't know what is fulfillment. I'd say I feel pretty fulfilled on most days. It's not all sunshine. But it definitely did relieve a lot of stress of not having to constantly chase, chase the next thing. I think that the big thing I like about, or the thing that I love about products is, um, it takes you out of that cycle of like constantly having to like find the next thing, and just like step back a little bit and be able to like iterate on something. If that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
As someone who is like doing that now, do you ever have the like itch to do something again, or are you kind of like?
Yeah, no, I don't think you ever really lose that itch. We definitely, me personally, and us as a team, like we're always talking about like, new app ideas, and what if we could do this or whatever. I think like a lot of times we've had to like walk ourselves back from that cliff or whatever, just because like I think you get the temptation. There's a big temptation to go to like always be starting something, but you can only do so many things at once. And I think like if you spread your time like over a bunch of different things, it can limit the possibility like for one of those things to become really good, or for you to like focus on one thing and actually make it work. But that said, like we have, we've thought about like at the point where we are, we have thought about like starting new products and that sort of thing. And I think we're probably at a much better place where we could do that if we want to today. But I would say like, probably, 3 years ago, I would have definitely, I'm really glad we didn't start something else that was like a really big undertaking.
That makes sense. Yeah, I appreciate you sharing that. I've been trying to like spend the last couple of weeks like learning like the process, like trying to find fulfillment in the process too. Because I've done so many things in life where I'm like, I will just do this and it'll make me happy, and it's never like enough. So like I was just curious, kind of.
Yeah. I think I like that. I like that, like finding fulfillment in the process. Because I don't think like I don't think success is going to make you happy if you're particularly unhappy now. If that makes sense. Like, I mean, it might make you a little bit happier, but I mean, it's not like the ultimate fulfillment. Like, because like, what is success? You know, like there's different levels of success. And if you're successful on one level, you know, you're probably going to like you know, set yourself a higher goal, to succeed. So yeah, I think like you really need to find like some sort of happiness or sustainability in the actual process of building what you're building.
Yeah, I feel like every level that you get to, you realize there's like a whole different set of problems that you're always like imagining the good parts, but you never can imagine the bad parts of it. So when you get there, you're like, oh crap, like, yeah, I might make 6 figures now consulting, but now I have no time to do anything else. I'm always working or
and I can't take a vacation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
One thing too I've been thinking about is like, you know, like this could not pan out for me, and I would sure hate to live the rest of my life like miserable. You know, like if I'm putting like all my like fulfillment and worth into like trying to build products and it doesn't pan out, like
right.
So anyway,
yeah.
Well, I think it's best said that, you know, you can teach a man to code, it'll frustrate him for a day. You know, what was it? Give a man some code, frustrate him for a day, teach him to code, and frustrate him for a lifetime.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, sorry to go super personal. I just been on my mind.
It's cool. Yeah, no, I think that's important. And it's good. I mean, like, I don't know that everyone actually thinks about that. You know, and tries to like solve that problem before they get there and realize that they're still not happy.
Yeah, I mean, that's been my experience with GoRails. Like, originally I was like, oh my God, like, I don't want to do consulting anymore. And then at some point it's like, boy, like, I can pay myself and stuff, and this is great, but like, it's pretty lonely, and I work by myself, and like, I get, you know, all these random support tickets at, you know, right before, like 5 minutes before I go to bed, I check my phone and it's like, you know, hey, my server's down and blah, blah, blah. Like, can you help me? And I'm like, not now. But, you know, it just feels like it's never, it's now, especially if you're one of the founders, like you feel like it's kind of always on until you have some sort of, you know, other people that can pick up the slack, and so on. But like, you know, it's just been, in my experience, like, it is better for some parts of life, but also like way worse for other parts. And it's just kind of changed. And it's not just all perfect. That's like definitely not possible, I feel like.
Yeah. It's a lot of work to be able to, like, I think it's constant focus and effort to try to optimize those problems away, or, you know, optimize them away until you get a new set of problems. But yeah, like for instance with Honeybadger, for a number of years, like especially when we started having, you know, a lot of like early on we had like a lot of growth for us, given that we started with like basically just like a single server basically in a Postgres database. So you know, like we talk about like when we were freelancing, we couldn't go on vacation. Well, when you've got like when you've got like a server with like, you know, a bunch of customers on it, that are going to be screaming at you if it goes down, you definitely can't go on vacation. So, for a time it was, you know, it wasn't like, oh, we have a product now, so, you know, all our problems are solved. Like we've had to, over time, we've had to like solve those issues in the company for the product, so that we can get to the level of life that we want.
Yeah. Speaking of growth, everybody knows that Rails, of course, doesn't scale. So how do you guys deal with this many errors?
Yeah. Well, we switched to Go, and no, we're still pretty much, I think, we're pretty much 100% Ruby. We've embraced AWS a lot more recently. So I will say one thing we've done that has helped our scaling story is we moved to AWS, and we've taken advantage of some of their like auto scaling features. So for instance, like we we can like spin servers up and down in response to like traffic patterns and that sort of thing now. But I don't know, like I think all along, like we've always been of the mindset like we should build for like the scale that we have today and then solve tomorrow's scale tomorrow. So like in the beginning, like I said, we're basically just like a Rails app and a Postgres database. That worked great until it didn't, like error data is like it's pretty much like giant blobs of JSON. And so after a while of like dumping that directly into Postgres, our database size was getting up into the terabytes. And that was something, that was the point where we were like, we can't keep just like buying a new server for our database. And we tackled that problem then, which was basically to like move that data out. And now it pretty much lives like that sort of data lives on S3 now. So.
Oh, cool. How do you go about querying that stuff?
So we have an Elasticsearch cluster, which we also now use Amazon's hosted. I forget what it's called, but yeah, we basically have like a hosted or a semi-managed cluster at AWS now, and nice. We use that for we index our notice data to Elasticsearch as well as dump the the full data to S3. And then, so searches go through Elasticsearch, and then when we actually need to like pull the full notice, we'll just pull it from S3, and then we do like heavy caching and that sort of stuff to limit the reads and all that. But yeah, it's worked out pretty well.
Have you been a part of the AWS transition, or has that been kind of like one person's kind of like responsibility?
It's mostly been Ben. I would say like that's pretty much all Ben. We do like all three of us, we've always rotated on call because we really like Ben and we want him to stick around. And so we realized like pretty early on that like Ben can't be on call 24/7 all year basically. So yeah, so we all know the systems at some level. Ben is the architect for sure, and so yeah, he's done a really great job of building out our AWS infrastructure.
I feel like we should have Ben on some time to just talk about AWS, because like I'll open the console like just to find S3 and I'm like overwhelmed with AWS services.
There's like 85 different services.
Yeah. They're all just like little acronyms. And so, yeah, my one of my former coworkers, he's been using AWS, I think like since the early days, but he keeps up with everything. And I'm like, I don't even know how to work S3. Like, how do I put credentials here? Like, how does this work? So,
yeah, one thing, Star, I think was the one that first did this, but he took a course. I think it was at Udemy, udemy.com. They're like a distance learning, like online course company. But yeah, they've got a pretty good like AWS certification set of certification courses. And so like they'll actually take you through like all the different AWS services, all the different like developer toolkits, and basically all the things that you would need if you were going to go and take like Amazon's actual like certification courses, which you can do as well. Like they actually have like certifications for various parts of the AWS stack that you can take. So if you're like really interested in like learning AWS at an expert level, you could go and like register for a course and basically learn it and then go get certified if you wanted to take it to that level.
Yeah, the other part's like I like really want to do that, and then I'm like, do I want to sit down and do that though? Like,
yeah,
it's not the most fun thing you can do.
Well, and if it's there's so many things to keep up with and learn.
Yeah,
And,
like the new products that they release every week. You
yeah.
gotta go do a course on that.
Well, even with just general programming, like, I mean,
Yeah.
you have to kind of prioritize the things you learn. I feel like with modern web development, or you're not going to really know anything very well.
Speaking of that, you guys obviously don't just support like Ruby and stuff. Like, do you guys split up kind of the other languages that you guys support? Because I'm assuming you have to build, integrations for each one of those, and maybe even some of the frameworks that those languages have. Like, how do you guys go and deal with that? Because you're, a small team. That's quite a bit of work, I would imagine.
Yeah, that is mostly what my job is, or has been. It's we support like most of the popular languages and frameworks now, so it's not quite as intensive as it used to be when we were like looking for new things to build. But yeah, so basically, like, I've built some of them, and then I've on the other ones I've worked with very closely with contractors to build them. So a good example of that is our PHP Laravel integration that we recently like completely revamped, rebuilt from the ground up for like modern Laravel and PHP. And I didn't really like, I've been out of PHP for a long time, so I didn't really feel like qualified to go in and just build that myself, or it would have taken me a long time to get caught up. So I ended up I actually went to Laracon, like their big annual conference last year, and tried to learn as much as I could just about where the community has gone to this point, and like where they're at, learn about Laravel. But then I ended up hiring someone to help me actually like build the thing that is expert in Laravel. And that's worked out really well. So I work with a number of people like that in various like areas of specialty.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, I know Stripe did that when they were building their libraries for Ruby and everything else. And I think that like if you try and do it and you don't know the language well, you're probably going to build something that feels weird to people in that language. And so, if you get someone who's good at it, it feels very natural when you're using that. That's like I always laugh when like you try and use the AWS gems, they feel so strange and so awkward and stuff in Ruby. And it's like clearly not written by a Rubyist and auto generated and stuff. And
yeah,
weird.
Stripe's a great example of doing that well, I think. And we look at our developer experience as almost as like part of our marketing. Because we get a lot of our business comes from word of mouth. Like we're really big on like making a really good impression with our customers, and helping them with whatever they need. Just making a good impression, and then they share us. They take us to new jobs. They tell their friends about us. So I think like it's really important to understand, like you said, to understand like how developers in that ecosystem do things, and then build it to work like they expect. Because otherwise, like they're not going to want to go share you to other Laravel developers if it's written like it was if it was for like JavaScript or something, or even Ruby.
So let's you kind of hit on something that I want to talk about, not programming related. You talk about like good experiences for your customers. Let's talk about the awesome things Honeybadger does, like at RailsConf Phoenix, taking us on a big like bus to In-N-Out Burger.
Oh yeah, I forgot you were on that bus, huh?
Dude, I was
Yeah.
I was on that bus. I was going to pass up burgers.
I have a picture of you and Justin Searles, I think, at In-N-Out. Maybe I'll have to send it to you.
What else? I think y'all always do such like great experience type things, because it was the next RailsConf was Pittsburgh, and Star was there, and like we went to like a French cuisine place.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that one. I didn't make it to that, but yeah, I remember him telling me about it. The year before, so I guess maybe it would have been 2 years before that. It was the year before we did the before Phoenix.
Kansas City.
Yeah, Ben did the Kansas City like a barbecue tour,
Yeah,
which I think was a hit. And
that's cool.
that was like, I think that was like the first type of event like that we did, and we really liked, like, it made a good impression on us. And yeah, we've been trying to do more things like that when we go to conferences, like get a group together and go do something cool or something fun. A lot of time, I think most of what we've done has involved food so far, but I mean, we love food, right? So
yeah.
But I like to find like some unique, angle to have with it in any case.
I think that just brought me back to our ending Rails Conf dinner, which was so good.
Oh yeah, it was. What I can't remember the name of that place. Something
Butcher and the Boar.
Butcher and the Boar. Yeah.
Yeah, man, that was awesome.
That was one of the greatest things that's ever happened to me.
You stand by it.
Yeah, I came home and I looked my kids in the eyes and I said, they don't understand anything I say. I tried to explain to them that I love their mom, them, and then Butcher and the Boar.
Well, it sounds like you have your priorities in order, at least.
Yeah, that's what I find my fulfillment in, is a steak place in Minneapolis. Awesome. Chris, you anything else you want to add, ask, anything like that?
I don't think so.
Josh, a million thank yous for joining us and just being a friend in Ruby land.
Yeah, totally. I'm glad that I could come on here. It's always fun to talk to you guys.
Any links or places on the internet you want to send folks?
Check out honeybadger.io. That's our air tracking homepage. And you can learn all about us. You can check out our cool honey badger character. We have kind of a mascot. So yeah, I think that's probably Founder Quest. That's the new podcast. It's founderquestpodcast.com, and you can go subscribe on iTunes, Overcast, whatever you listen through.
I voucher for that podcast. I listen to it on my walks, and I enjoy it.
Well, thank you for listening.
Yeah, I've liked the behind the scenes look into everything. It's super fun.
Yeah, we've been able to go a little bit deeper on some of the topics about how we run the business, and especially like the marketing side, and it's been a lot of fun. So I think we touch on some of the topics that we touched on here. So I think people should like it.
They're all things that are like stuff I wish I would have been able to listen to like 10 years ago, which is like exactly what more people need to be sharing, I think.
Cool.
Awesome. Well, Chris will tie this episode up and do it again soon.
All right. See you next week.
See y'all.
See ya.